first line of work was in the restaurant trade many,
Oh,
many
wow.
moons ago. My dad had a family business, so I kind of left school and went into that. Kind of learned how everything worked, and I ended up taking over the business when I was 22.
Oh,
And then we ended up selling the business when I was 26. And then that kind of got me into fitness. And to be honest, um, I was going to the gym every day. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So I went and got my course done. Went and worked at Nuffield Health as a PT, and actually found out that I was quite good at it, and I was
always helps.
actually enjoyed working with people. So I kind of fell into the gym business. And then as you do, you kind of get to a point where you're always looking for that next step, aren't you? Um,
Absolutely.
and so after kind of working in various different kind of clubs, whether it be leisure centre or private club or something big or something small, um, you kind of looking for your next step. And that's where I think the gym idea came from. Um, and so I was lucky enough to have people that would invest in me, and then it kind of went from there. Really, I guess if you're entrepreneurial anyway, you're always looking for that next step, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're used to running a business in the restaurant trade, you're kind of used to being self-employed and not having anyone tell you what to do. And so that's kind of how I think I went in down that road and becoming a PT, and then thinking, right, okay, well, I actually like what I'm doing now, and I can see myself staying here. And so naturally, the next step was to open up my own gym, um, and that's where the idea for Love Fitness came from.
And in terms of the motivation behind the brand, where does that come from? Obviously, you got Love Fitness. It's a fitness club, but it's not just a standard gym. I mean, what's the sort of setup?
Yeah.
What's the motivation behind that?
So the brand is the business model is based on trying to bring all the best parts of the industry under one roof for an affordable price.
Yeah.
That's the business model. The brand itself, Love Fitness, was basically just came from we wanted to create something that everyone recognized and was easy for them to know who we are. The love kind of comes from the love for the industry. Also, the love is the heart. So the heart is your body, it's the blood going around the body, and it's your health. So it all kind of mixed together. I wanted to keep things really, really nice and simple. For me, the saying that I always come along with is simplicity is genius.
I
And
like
so
that.
everything that I've done going forward and planning, it's all about keeping things as simple as we possibly can.
And in terms of sorry, lost my train of thought there. But in terms of how the model works, because obviously you brought everything together that you liked. In terms of what is the model? Is it group training? Is it
Yeah.
PT? Is it standard gym? What's the style behind it?
Well, okay. So I guess the way that I see things is that the industry is split into three sections.
Yeah,
Um, three most popular sections. So, for example, you've got your 24-hour affordable gyms, so they're fully equipped. Anyone can use them at any time. They're going to have your free weights, your pin weights. They're going to have your functional training areas, your stretch areas, your studios. So these are like really, really popular. Obviously, we know kind of like the big brands that kind of open those clubs. Um, and then the other side that we see is we've got your like small group PT fitness clubs. that do all like your functional training classes, or they might do your yoga classes or your Pilates classes or your spin classes. So these tend to be smaller spaces,
Yeah,
working with like less people, but the training is really, really focused. You don't tend to find this in like your normal membership clubs. It's either one or the other.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then on the third side, obviously you've got your like super expensive plush racket clubs. Um, but what they've got, what is customer service when you walk into this nice club and you're greeted by someone who will say hello to you, strike up a conversation. Maybe you've seen them a few times, so you start to have like you know, a little bit of a friendship going there. That's an element that is in that side of the industry that you don't tend to find in, especially the budget 24-hour clubs.
yeah, yeah,
And so for us, it was trying to combine everything together. So the way that I kind of describe it is that yes, we are your affordable 24-hour fully equipped gym. Then we get your small group PT business model, and we bolt that onto our business.
Oh wow, okay.
So we're also offering that side to it as well. And then what we take from your racket clubs, like your big clubs, we take that customer service aspect. So we take that front desk and we put that front desk into our club. So that what we're doing now is trying to, we have created this complete business model that's giving you everything that you would want from a club,
Yeah,
but still making it affordable so that everyone gets access to these um, positive parts of the clubs. I hope
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I got
yeah,
a couple of questions, Massimo, and Ryan probably knows one of these. It's funny, but every episode so far this series has all started to center around or come back to customer service and customer experience. We talk about it all the time between ourselves. We talk about it with clients all the time. Um, we had PerformX. We had Giles from PerformX on last week talking about customer experience. James Cotton in Poland, customer experience. Stuart Broster, customer experience. Everyone's all about customer experience and the importance of it. And I think in this sort of world that we're, I guess, developing world, because I think everyone's sort of adopting AI, but I think you can also see the sort of the seeds of actually people are already starting to yearn for like human contact a little bit more and that customer experience. And you've got the operators who are at the lower end who purposely their product is not offering that. It's offering kind of the complete opposite of that. So it's just good, and it's I think it's going to be a big USP going forwards for any brand that is actually focused on not just volume. Volume will come, but it will come from experience. So it's good. It's good to hear that, and I'm also kind of interested to know, kind of taking a step back, but when you're talking about the restaurant industry, and again, sort of linking this to last week. So Giles from PerformX, his background was nightclubs and taking the experience of nightclubs and actually then how he sort of transitioned and the learnings from that. So what are the learnings that you took from your family business in the restaurant industry, and kind of what have you brought into Love Fitness from that?
There's probably quite a few similarities, if I'm honest, with the business model that we had with the restaurants and Love Fitness we see today. So my dad created this business model where anyone could enjoy it. Okay, it didn't. He used to say it didn't matter if you were the CEO or if you had like a minimum wage job. You could go to his restaurant, you could enjoy the food, you could get really good service and have a great time, and you could afford it. And
yeah,
that was the business model. And so when you start working in that and it's your own business, you understand how important the connections are with people, especially in the restaurant business when the turnover is purchases on that day. So
Yeah,
every
absolutely.
day you start from scratch, you know, you need to make that turnover and you want repeat business. So you have to make people feel welcome and you have to give them something of value. And that's what creates repeat business. And that's what, for a gym, it gets people to kind of stay with you because they're getting everything they want. So customer service for me is one of my strong points. And I learned that from the restaurant industry. And I took that into my personal training business. So whenever I went into a new gym as a personal trainer, I wasn't the most experienced because I came into it quite late. I was probably in my late 20s. I probably wasn't the most knowledgeable because, let's be honest, PT courses now don't really give you enough knowledge anyway when you're qualified. It gives you enough to get into a club, and then you need to really start to work it out. But it was my customer service experience that helped me build my personal training business. Um, and then from having that experience and working in all these other gyms, you can see where they're either succeeding or failing. And you can see in your talk, you're talking to members and you're understanding what they want and what they do want. This was way before COVID. They want that connection with people. So the Love Fitness business model really is very similar to my dad's restaurant. It's about giving people what they want, giving them that connection with people, making them feel welcome, um, and giving it to them at really good value. So
Mm.
Tell you what's
it's
interesting. No,
yeah, go
go on,
on.
Massimo. Sorry.
It's very much what I've learned from the restaurant business. I've then translated that into the gym world.
Well, I think that's I was just going to say I think it goes a really long way, and I always say this to clubs: if I mystery shop them and I walk in and they don't say hello, now I could have my headphones in, I could be have any demeanor, but if they don't come in, if you go in and they're not immediately like, oh hi, how's it going? I just say I always sort of feedback to them afterwards. If we can't get a hello right, then
Yeah,
if like it goes a really long way. At my club I go to, I really don't want to speak to anyone when I go in. But I have had it before when I go in, and if the staff behind the desk don't say hello or they don't engage you, whilst I don't want to engage with them, I'm still a little bit like, why didn't they say hello to me? Like, why can't they get that bit right? It's just
yeah,
like whoever you are actually goes quite a long way. So I think some of these basics are really overlooked, and I think it's quite refreshing to kind of hear that because a lot of the brands who are franchising are very much they're on the finances, they're on the product, they're on the volume, and the break evens are really high on them. I understand it. They're very expensive. So it'd be good to kind of go through not the exact specifics, but the differences between Love Fitness and some of those other franchises as well, because they don't necessarily focus on what you're talking about there, and they don't talk about that engagement and that retention piece from day one, because that's what you're talking about here is the retention side of the business before, you know, and just none of the other franchises really discuss this enough. They talk about you've got these several hundreds that you'll break even. You need to get that. It's financials. It's doing that. They don't really talk about it's like that's the what you need to do. There's not really the, well, how do we do that and how do we actually get there, which is really at the heart of what you're talking.
yeah,
What's
exactly.
interesting,
And
I was
I
just going to
think
say, what's interesting, Massimo, with you coming from the restaurant side, is the fact that in a gym they keep coming back, so they pay for the membership. So you do get when restaurant, it was like you say, it was that one-off visit.
mm,
And what you're effectively saying is you're taking that one-off visit mentality and treating every visit that the person comes into
yeah,
the club as that one-off that they could leave at any time. And I think
That's
that's where a lot of gyms fail.
That's the mistake they make, though, don't they? That gyms
Yeah,
sign up a member and then they think, right, we've got them. They've signed a contract. It's like, look, like people can cancel their direct debit. People can talk with their feet. You might have them for a year. You might have them for 6 months. But just because they've signed a piece of paper doesn't mean you've got them. It's like, okay, well, you've got an opportunity to keep this person now. How do we engage with them? How do we keep them? And people don't think like that. I like the thought process of almost like, this is one off every time I see them. Right, we've got to give experience. We've got to make them feel good. I like that, Massimo. I think it's a good way of looking at
Yeah,
it.
and your customers and your members will help you build your business, right? If they're going to a club and they're feeling welcome, and they feel comfortable, then they're going to tell people about it, you know? So it is just so important to make people feel welcome, especially when they start with you, because you know what it's going to be like. You go to a new place, even if you are experienced in gyms, it's a new gym. The kit's in different places. You don't know anyone else, so you just want to kind of break that ice as early as possible and make them feel as comfortable as possible, so that they're not worried about going to the gym. You know, it's not gonna be nice for them to go, oh, I've got to go to that place where I don't really feel that comfortable. They're not going to go.
We
So
talk about it all the time, Massimo, in the sense of the um, the average person. So a really, I mean, someone who trains all the time, 5, 6 days a week, would probably walk into any gym, feel comfortable, just do their own thing, whatever. But the vast majority of people that join, the vast majority of the 11 million people apparently that are members of gyms are not that type of person. And so they're walking in there nervous, uncomfortable. Like you say, they're in a social setting they don't know anybody. And we sign them up and go, well,
Mm,
there you go. And you're like,
yeah,
wow. And that's without taking into consideration the neurodivergent people and stuff like that. They generally find those sort of spaces uncomfortable. And you sort of go, actually, to build a community, you've got to communicate, you've got to speak, you've got to interact, you've got to make them feel welcome. Just because you've got a great club, I tell people all the time, everyone's got a treadmill. All gyms have got a treadmill. All gyms have got the same facilities. That's not what makes you. It's the people within your business, and it's making them comfortable. And but I always think the power or the confidence it takes to walk into a gym for the first time, a new gym, is massive. And we take it for granted because we work in the industry that it's really easy. But it's really not. The average person to walk into a gym and decide they want to join and then turn up 2, 3 times a week is
yeah,
actually harder than what people think. And not the training, it's the mentality, it's the psyche of going into the gym that's the top bit.
yeah,
yeah.
and
And
I,
the thing is that it translates to all customer service businesses. This is not just it's it's not just gyms and restaurants. We're talking about salons, and we're talking about, spas, and we're talking about places like that. This is a customer service industry, and I've always felt like, although I love the fitness industry and the gym industry, I always felt like it was lacking something. I didn't quite understand what it was. And it's more about customer service to me than it can be about fitness sometimes.
I come from
Uh,
hotels. A lot of my career was in with Marriott hotels, and that was the same. It was all about it was service, it was experience, wowing the customer. It was all about that. And then obviously because I was fitness within the hotels, you sort of saw it from a different side. Now we were able to transition that because it was the same company, but then when you go into others and they just don't see it, they don't. We're a hospitality business. First and foremost, that's what we are. People are spending their leisure time in our facilities. So take the results. The results are almost the byproduct of a great product and a great yeah what we deliver. It's interesting how our industry looks at it. We always see people talk. It's about the outcome. Get people fitter, get people healthy, get people moving. Actually, we're a hospitality business. Get that right, and they'll want to move more. They'll want to exercise. They'll want to
mm.
come into the facilities. And I think that's where we go wrong.
I think it'd be also, Massimo, it'd be good to kind of hear your thoughts on community building. We'll go into the franchising side a little bit more in a minute. But I think there's a lot of, when people talk about, so what you've been kind of discussing, how you build that kind of club feeling. And I think a lot of people sort of talk about building a community in club. But to me, and they'll look at it and they'll say, build community. Do you do a summer barbecue? Do you do this sort of, look, that's important. I'm not saying those things aren't important, but I think the most important thing is, to me, is how you create that within the club, how you create the right kind of people, who, exactly what Ryan you were saying there. Actually, when a new person comes into the club, they don't have someone who's leaving plates on, who's giving them dirty looks. Or I was in a club in fact, I'll tell you, It's just a slight aside. I found this fascinating though, that the thought process. So a club that we're I won't say that we're a club anyway that I was speaking about. They've got a member, and they were saying, it's kind of saying, oh, we've got this problem member. He's a new member. He's joined. He's trying it on. This is a real story. He's trying it on with every woman pretty much in the club. He's made a member for about a week. He's making our members feel quite uncomfortable. And like, he's an older guy. He's trying it on with everyone. And I was like, right, is he still a member? Yeah, he's still a member. Has anyone spoke to him? No. I was like, okay, okay, not just what, just cancel this man's membership. You don't need a member like that who's literally come in just to pretty much harass every woman in the gym. What does that do to your community? What does that's so the opposite. You want someone who's going to come in and they're, if a new member needs help, they're there. Anyway, this guy's literally like, I was like saying to them, how many members are you going to lose by people just being uncomfortable by this person being in the club? This is an extreme example. And sorry, Massimo, kind of, we did say that this goes in some strange directions. But anyway, it's just that community building. And they've got this one person. They're like, well, we don't want to lose the member. It's like, come on, it's one member. You've probably lost 10 in the last week by having this guy going around harassing everyone in his first week of the gym. Lose the member, build the community. There you go. Anyway, that just jumped into my head, because I think when people think about community, they do think almost about, right, do we do a Christmas party? Do we do that? That's important, but that's like one day a year. What are you doing the other 300 plus, So be good to know how you're building that within your memberships. And also, I guess the ethos and behind that, how you're going to replicate that, because that's the other thing with franchising, kind of moving into that a little bit as well, is like, obviously you've got a great product and you've got a great setup in Henley. How are you going to instill that into other franchises? Because that's when there's a little bit of a difficulty when people go into franchising.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's all about people, right? It's all about hiring the right people. So the recruitment process is really, really key here. So as a franchisee, you're going to be recruiting your customer advisor team. And one of them will be the manager, let's just say. That manager that you recruit, that recruitment process is key. And how you direct that manager is also key, because all the habits come from the top. And so all the staff underneath the manager are going to be led by example by that manager and by yourself. So I guess the answer really is your recruitment is key, of finding the right people who have that personality, who have that outgoing personality and can talk to people. Don't get me wrong, we've employed some really bad staff in the past, and it just hasn't worked out.
Well, everyone has though, Massimo. Someone walks in and you have like a big guy, you have someone who's in great shape, and you're like, right, okay, they'll just sell memberships. It's like they probably won't, and they probably won't keep members. Those probably aren't the best staff members. So yeah, we've all been there.
I mean, on the front desk, they're not fitness professionals, and they're not meant to be fitness professionals. They are customer service advisors. So it's all about getting on people that have a personality and are good at talking to people. So that, and as a franchisee, actually, that's your focus, because the way that we see ourselves as really a facility. Okay, so we provide the facility, we provide the club, the equipment is clean, it's in working order. The fitness side of things, it's not that we don't look after it, but we employ like self-employed PTs and instructors, because they're self-employed, they care. It's their own business working from within our business. So in a way, you can kind of trust those experienced fitness pros to do their job, so that you can just focus on connecting with members and recruiting the right staff. So that's kind of the focus is on getting in the right people. And you will get some people in who just don't work out and time wasters, but that's just business. and that is just what you're going to deal with when you're employing a team.
Right. Ryan, should we take it into the franchising side, because I think that's a natural point. On you talk about your staff.
Absolutely.
What's our franchisee profile then? Because it's kind of saying leading from the top. So um, what kind of people? Because we're early stages. We've got sites in the in the process of opening and doing heads of terms. But yeah, who are we looking for now? Ideally, in your mind, your first set of franchisees.
I'm looking for leaders who are going to create a positive working environment, because in turn, that provides a happy environment for our members. It's nothing worse than going into a gym where the staff do not want to be there. They hate their job. They're probably annoyed by their boss. That negativity then that comes out to the members. So we're looking for leaders who don't think that being a leader is just by bossing people around. It's about having empathy for their staff, for their team, understanding that the employer and employee relationship is a two-way street. Okay, so as an employer, you promise to do X, Y, and Z. As an employee, you promise to do X, Y, and Z. As long as everyone together does their job and their promises are made, what you're doing is creating that positive environment that people are going to be happy to come to work at. I've got this thing. I've worked with people, and I've had people work for me where they just make their staff's life a living hell, and they're rude to them, and they think that they've got the power to talk to people really badly. I've seen staff in various places walking out crying, and I hate that kind of stuff.
Like a
That
1970s style management, isn't it? Where it's just like,
Yeah,
I'm the boss, you'll do as
um,
you're told. And
yeah,
I
but
just don't think there's any place.
it's still out there. I still see it to this day where people are just really bad man managers, and it just creates a really negative attitude in like the workplace, and it goes from the staff and it goes through to your customers, and it's just a nightmare. So I'm looking for leaders who are positive, who want to create somewhere where people want to come and work. Um,
I think it's really important, Massimo, as well, that you have that ideal franchisee in your mind, because obviously Russ has worked with a lot of franchisees. I've worked with a lot of franchisees over the years, and some of the mistakes that you see is they just take someone because they've got the money. They've got the money. They can open a club. They don't really do much vetting on the individual themselves, and actually that comes back to burn them later on down the line. One, they have to give more resources from a franchisor perspective to the franchisee, because that person's not making it work. The staff aren't buying in, and in the end, you're doing far more than you would have expected to do normally. But it's just not a nice working environment. And then as you get bigger, what happens is you end up, if you've got 4 or 5 of those, they end up creating potential big problems for the franchisor, when actually they were the wrong people for either the industry or the wrong people for your business. And I love the way you're working and sort of going, actually, we're speaking to everybody. We don't just have a quick call then deposit. It's you know what I mean. Between you and Russ, you're making 4, 5, 6, 7 calls to these guys, meeting them. You know what I mean. Unlike some franchisees, I mean, you're even going to help them finding the properties, and I think that's where you want that close relationship with your franchisees, and you want them to feel like almost like your customer is getting that wow factor. You want that sort of relationship with your franchisees, and I think that's refreshing, seeing some of the franchises we've worked with, Russ, over the years.
Yeah, I think the thing, and I say empathy and franchising all the time when I'm speaking to people, and it's sadly lacking in most that I see. To be honest, you've got to remember that people are putting a great deal of money, maybe their family's futures, on the line in your brand, and often, I've seen people open sites before the operator or the franchisor has even gone and looked at it or really vetted it. They've signed up to heads of terms. I've gone to site to support them. and that's the first time anyone's been to site, and they look at and they're like, so what do you think? So, well, I think it's very very nice, but maybe I do, maybe I don't, because they've signed heads of terms at that point, and we're doing the best we can with it at that point because these guys are in it, as opposed to if I look at the difference here, where you've got Massimo going to site, who's doing, we spoke the other day, and I was saying, you're doing a lot here for franchisees, and that's good because we want the first, we want the first set of franchisees to work. We want them to be successful. We want them to want to open more sites. We want them to have a good work-life balance. We want their teams to feel great, and we want them to be successful. And all of those things, I think, just a lot of franchises, they tick off one or two of those, but they don't maybe put the time, effort, and, if you don't mind me saying, Massimo, the love into it from day one. And then they wonder why these franchisees are failing, or not, maybe not even failing, maybe just not succeeding as well as they could do. So I think it's really refreshing that you're thinking about that from day one, because, like I say, it's quite hard when you've got 10, 15, 20 franchisees and you've created a certain model to then go back and say, oh no, but actually this is the ethos, this is what we're thinking about. It's done. You've already built a franchise by then. So building it in the right way.
Just out of interest, Massimo, what made you go from the Henley Club and go, okay, I think the best way to go forward now is franchising? What made you think that's the route forward for me? That's where I want to take it.
I think it's, as I said before, if you've got that entrepreneurial spirit, you're always looking for that next step.
Yeah.
And so I always knew that I wanted to expand when I opened the gym in Henley. And I knew that it had to work without me actually being there for me to replicate the business. And I guess at the time, I didn't know whether this was going to be my own money, investors, or franchise. I didn't know at the time. But when it came to the time to think about, okay, so how do I now build this business? Franchising just seemed like the most obvious step, really.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give away any of my business in Henley. That's my kind of bread and butter, And to me, it just seemed like the next step. I've kind of always been around franchising because we thought about franchising with the business at one point. So I kind of understood franchising, understood how it would work anyway. So it just felt it was the best way for us, really.
And in terms of love versus obviously we won't name the others, but in terms of you versus those guys, I guess what's the benefit of coming on board with you guys at this early stage and helping it to grow than picking one of the probably the bigger brands as the case may
Well,
be at the minute?
not one of the big plus points really is we are the best value gym franchise out there. Like the amount of money you're going to need to invest in a Love Fitness franchise is significantly less than any of the other major brands. You're talking about 50% really. And that is because I guess they focus a lot on fit and finishes and equipment, and we focus more on the business model and the customer service side. Not saying that the finishes are going to be bad or the kit's going to be bad and cheap. That's not the case. But we know that a treadmill's a treadmill, a squat rack's a squat rack. We don't feel that we need that level of investment from a franchisee. And for what it cost me in Henley, I mean, to be honest, we did a lot of work in Henley. In hindsight, too much work, really. If we would have had a site that was more ready without knocking down walls and extending, it would have cost us less than half of what we paid out. So the initial investment is a massive plus for us. But coming from a business model point of view, there isn't any other franchise out there that's doing what we're doing that I know of.
Yeah.
So when you are launching your club and you are going to have competition, because that's just the case, you can compare like for like what we're offering and what they're offering, and we will always have something that they don't. It will
Yeah.
never be the other way around, never. So, and it goes back to having that complete business model. We're offering everything that members want from a gym, whether it be go in there and train on your own, go and do group PT or spinning or yoga and Pilates, and going in there to actually have a conversation with someone on the front desk as well.
Yeah.
So I think that having that complete business model and being amazing value for money helps us stand out from the rest, really.
Yeah, I think you also, I think you offer opportunity to people as well because of the level of investment. I think a lot of people go into franchise or the industry because first off, they want to open a club, but they probably want to open more than one club. And then the reality is that on franchise businesses, the cost in that is quite prohibitive unless you massively, massively leverage on finance and borrowing. A lot of people aren't in that position to start off with. So I think this offers an opportunity to open and own your own club, but actually quite quickly, because of the relatively low break-even numbers that are involved here, it does allow you to scale up and become multi-site relatively quickly. So I think it presents that opportunity that's quite difficult to achieve unless you already have a lot of capital with other franchises. So I think that the more that we've discussed, the more that we've worked together, I think that really jumps out to me. And people aren't necessarily going to realize that until they actually get under the hood of every franchise. Or in some instances, you get involved in other franchises and then you realize what the costs actually are in this thing. Whereas I think the other good thing that you do is, I think, transparency from day one. You know what it is, you know what the product is, you know the cost of it. There's nothing hidden in here, and I don't need to blow smoke here, but I think I think, like I say, I think it's refreshing what you're doing and what you're trying to do, and like I say, I think it stands out on the franchise landscape at the moment because there are a lot of fitness opportunities out there, but I guess, yeah, I've in your words though, like what would you kind of say is your like one line of how this stands out against everything else that's out there at the moment?
Oh, you really put me on the spot now.
I am.
You want
a
a
good link to.
one-liner to show everyone what stands us out from everyone else. I guess there's no other way to put it apart from the complete fitness experience at amazing value that suits everyone in the market. That I can't think of any other way to put it. And I've been members of gyms and I've never been to a gym that gives me all of that, or I can go to a gym and see a club that offers as much as we do. I think that's really what sets us apart. But also going back to your thing about the cost for the franchisee, okay, we just spoke about the setup costs were significantly better value, but the ongoing costs, like learning from you, Russell, about what other brands are charging their franchisees on a monthly basis is eye-watering. And I don't think that's fair. Like you need your franchisees to make money. It's not fair.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's got to go both ways. That's the franchising loop. It's got to be a win-win. If one of you's winning, if you've got a set of franchisees and they are making pots of cash, and you're sitting there, like eating your tin of beans, then we've got a problem. But equally, if you're sitting there in your Bentley and your franchisees are sitting there and they're struggling to make break even, then or to pay their bills, then we've got a problem. It has to be
exactly.
a win-win.
Yeah,
anyway.
Exactly. And I think that ethos runs straight through the business, from myself down to the managers. even down to our personal trainers, you know, our personal trainers that are paying us rent, we charge them a rent that means that they can make a living. We,
Yeah.
you know, and they stay with us. They stay with us for years. They've been with us for years because we're not charging them extortionate rent. They can actually come into our gym, run a business, and they're bringing us business as well because it's free
And they're looking after
advertising.
your clients because they feel a value to the brand. So they
That's
sort of
right.
go. I can imagine some of your PTs, if the receptionist is busy, is jump behind the desk to help somebody else out, and
That's
you've got
right.
all that sort of stuff happening. Not because they're obliged to, but because they feel a sense of ownership for the whole business.
Yeah.
Because they're happy and they're earning and they're comfortable, so they feel part of the club. I always find it strange when you have a club that doesn't treat the personal trainers almost as staff. So
Mm.
obviously you're not going to give them holiday pay and that sort of stuff. But if you treat them in the same way you would your staff, you involve them in all the stuff that you're doing, you involve them in the team meetings, you involve them in the success. Suddenly, then they act like staff, but they're freelance, so they're paying their own way, and it's amazing.
Well,
But so many clubs don't do that.
no, they
It's
don't. They're the people who speak to your members. They're on the gym floor all the time. They know everything that's wrong or right with this club. I've had it before, and exactly that, actually, Ryan. Funny enough, it reminds me of a meeting that I had, and I had the first, like, clubs who don't run a monthly PT meeting, and I ran one, and the PTs were like, "We've never had one of these," and it's like, "How have you never had a PT meeting like where everyone's just a feedback and actually treating everyone like they're a team member?" They're so integral to gyms, regardless of the model that
Yeah.
you have, Massimo. If you've got PTs who are there and they just feel like I'm paying my rent so I can do what I want here, that's a very
Yeah.
poor representation of your club. And from a member's point of view, they don't think of this person as a self-employed person. They think of this as representative and staff in the club. So it's really
Yeah.
important, and it's really good the way you approach that. And
Yeah.
I'll give you a tagline as well, Massimo, because I'd say you bring empathy and empathy and love to franchise.
You're getting worse, Russell, with those lines.
Hey, you got empathy's not enough in franchise.
That is true.
Anyway, Ryan, reel me back in. I know we're running on time now.
no, it's fine. I do love it though, Ross. We'll have to get you on our marketing a bit more. But in terms of your journey so far, I guess what's some sort of key learnings that you've taken from this move to one site to now franchising? Is there anything that stuck out? Going, oh, wasn't expecting that, or has it pretty much been plain sailing? Other than
Well, it's never plain sailing, is it? It's never plain sailing. We've had lots of conversations with potential franchisees, haven't we?
Mm.
And to be honest, we haven't really been franchising for long. It's only been about 5 or 6 months, but we've had lots and lots of conversations. I think when it comes to franchising and finding the right people, it's also about timing. And I think there's only so much you can do. Not that there's only so much you can do. As long as you're doing your job, then you know that those franchisees that are going to commit are going to happen. So we've
yeah,
got one guy already that's looking for a place up in Newcastle or Sunderland. So getting that first one within like the first 5 or 6 months for me is great.
yeah,
I guess for me, it's at the moment it's all a massive learning curve. So I think I'm learning how to be a franchisor now as well. But as long
and
as
that's a different approach, isn't it? Absolutely, from running your own club on a daily basis and everything else to suddenly going, oh, hold on a minute, now I'm taking that helicopter view
yeah.
over the whole brand. I can
But
imagine
it's but it still goes back to empathy. It still goes back to when you speak to your potential franchisee, you've got to understand their situation. You've got to understand that you're asking them to invest a significant amount of money. You've got to understand that they need to feel comfortable with the kind of level of risk they're taking. You need to have that empathy for their position instead of just go, right, listen, you either sign the papers and pay the deposit or what. That's not what we're about. This is about the whole ethos of the business running from the top straight down to the bottom.
No, this isn't. Like I say, this isn't persuasion. We've had this conversation. Not persuading anyone to sign up to a franchise. It's presenting this as the opportunity and finding the right people and the right fit, because there's no point, and there's too many franchises that make this mistake of they need people, or they feel like they need people, they need franchises, they need locations, they need to build their profile. Yes, to a degree, every franchise needs that, but building it with the right people in the right places, they're at the right time, they have the right motivations, and it aligns well with the franchisor. If you do it the other way and you sign up franchisees and they're, you open in the wrong location, or you have the wrong person, or you have someone who just wants to, and some franchises are fine for this, you just want to invest and that's it, and it's a hands off. Okay, I'll say on your behalf, this probably isn't the franchise for them. It doesn't have to be completely hands on, but it shouldn't be hands off, because you need to build it and you need to love it and you need to make it work. So I think it's just the case of, if you're sitting here and you said, right, we've been franchising for 3 months, we're on our fifth site now, you'd say, geez, there's a problem here. There's a real problem here. And Ryan, you know plenty of franchises who've done that. And they're sitting there and they view that as success. That's successful. We've on to our 5th site. We're signing up all these franchisees, getting all these locations. I'd look at it and say, you couldn't have a bigger red flag. It's like, build slowly, build the right franchisees, get the right locations, build success, make sure your first set of franchisees are successful, and then build off there. If they're not successful, you ain't going to get another set of franchisees. So you can forget about it. The whole franchise is going to fall apart. So you're building it in the right way. I'll just say that.
I've worked with a few. I've worked with franchisors that are no longer with us because they took that wrong model, took everybody as quickly as they could, wanted to grow really fast, got up to 32 clubs. Within a year, they'd gone bust. So they had this massive explosion, but they were taking people. They were. Yeah, I won't go into the whole story, but they just got the wrong people into the business for the model that they had. But I mean, you see even in the bigger ones that they get people in that don't have that skill set that you need, and like you say, with the fact that you're going customer service heavily focused, you've got to have that right franchisee that has that in them as well.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, you can put a really good general manager in, but it still all comes from the top. Everything feeds down. We all know that. So if you get a franchisee in there that's not that way inclined, it's probably the wrong business for them. So I absolutely think you're doing it the right way, Massimo. Just to finish on, because we're that's gone really fast. We've run out of time. But in terms of it's not something we've asked in a while, but I think it's quite poignant. What motivates you to do what you do, Massimo? What's the key drive that gets you out of bed in the morning?
I couldn't tell you. It's just I have to do it. I think when you're that way inclined, you're that way inclined. I think a lot of professional athletes will tell you that. They don't know what gets them. They don't know what gets them to go and train every day and try and get that gold medal or win that trophy or whatever. They just have to do it. They couldn't imagine themselves living in any other way. And I've been like this since I was a child. I've always dreamt of being someone successful as an adult, and that comes
Yeah.
from my experience with my dad. He was like, my dad couldn't read or write. He came over to England from Sicily when he was 14. Came from nothing.
Wow.
Started working as a baker in Tesco's, and then got a bank loan and set up his own little cafe bakery, and he grew that to 7 restaurants in the bakery unit. He couldn't read or write, but he knew
That's
that
incredible.
he knew that he wanted to be someone. And I remember when I was growing up and I was going with him to the restaurants. So he would take me to football, and then we would go to one of his restaurants for a coffee. And I remember like getting to an age where starting to understand who he was and starting to understand how people looked at him and how people spoke to him, and understood the magnitude of what he was creating. And
Yeah.
that's just what I wanted. I wanted to be that person. So I can't tell you what motivates me, because it's the only way that I know. It's just progression, progression,
Yeah.
progression, progression, the next step, the next step, the next step. That's
What an
just
amazing story though, of your dad. That's I love stories. I know Russ does as well, like that, where you get people who come from adversity and they literally,
yeah,
and then you're speaking to the son who's gone, yeah, absolutely, hero. Look what he's done.
yeah,
I think they're
Yeah,
amazing stories.
I mean, you couldn't have told us that at the start of the podcast, Massimo. We probably could have talked about that a lot more when talking about the restaurant earlier. That's a great story.
yeah, it is.
But anyway, you saved it for the end. So no,
Well, I
that's
think that's a nice place to end it as well, Massimo. Great way to end. Really appreciate your time. Obviously, we're really looking forward to carry on working with you and seeing this brand fly. We love it. That's why we're on board with you. And if anybody does want to find out more, looking for an opportunity at the minute, Massimo's details will be on here. You can find him on LinkedIn. You can find Love Fitness on all the various social channels as well, and on the internet. But yeah, if someone does want to, they're sort of sat there looking at it, going, yeah, I think now's the time. Uh, give Massimo a shout, because it's definitely a franchise to look out for over the next sort of two,
Great.
3, 5 years. So, but
Thanks,
thanks for
Ryan.
being on.
Lovely. Thank you. Pleasure.
thanks, Massimo.
Cheers.
All right, let me just